right, welcome everybody. Welcome. I've got something pretty cool and special for you here today. This is a peek at my new model for telling your story the right way, the most powerful way, and the way that blows people away from the stage so you can get clients without ever having to sell. I call it the question mark storytelling model because first is most storytelling models look something like this. And I guess that's cool. It kind of looks like teeth or maybe sharks swimming in the water or whatever. And they want an emotional peak here, an emotional peak here, and an emotional peak here. And that's all well and good, but it's lacking. And I'm about to show you why. The second most common model for storytelling is the dramatic arc. Start here, build to the drama here, resolve here. And again, it's okay, but I think you're going to understand why the question mark model is so much better in just a moment. So, here we have something called PS. And here we have the same thing again. And here we have a bunch of BH, not to be confused with BS. And here we have something called HJ, spoiler alert. That stands for Hero's Journey. And here we have something confusing called BTLL. I'm just going to go back around to the other side of the camera to make sure you guys can see all that. Yeah, for the most part. Okay, so why is this crazy thing, which you may or may not notice kind of looks like a question mark, so much better as a storytelling model? Here's why. In a nutshell, most people teach some form of the hero's journey. The two models I just showed you before, the three peaks and the big wave, that's basically a hero's journey with a bunch of water poured on it to make it less complex. But here's the rub. See, the hero's journey starts without including your backstory that explains who you are. So here, let me walk you through the power of the question mark storytelling model. We start with the PS. This stands for Pinnacle Story. This is your Pinnacle Story. You have a moment in your life that set you on the path that led you to who you are now and what you do. It could be winning the lottery, losing a loved one, the great economic collapse of 2008. It could be a car accident. It could be anything. It was something that had the element of shakabuku in it. I hear you asking, what is shakabuku? I'm glad you asked. Shakabuku is a swift spiritual kick to the head that alters your perception forever. And that is what happens in your Pinnacle Story. My Pinnacle Story was when I found myself, after having crossed line after line that I swore I'd never cross as a homeless, cult survivor, drug addict criminal, I found myself at a moment where I was holding a gun in my hand and literally plotting to attempt to kill another man. Premeditated murder. That was my Pinnacle Story. That's the moment where I said to myself, there's got to be a way out of this. And then I realized the way out is to abandon everything I've ever known and absolutely surrender and have faith that there's something else. That's the Pinnacle Story, but see, that's not enough. You need to know, to really relate to that story, you've got to understand all this back history, right? All these different little stories that tell who I used to be leading up to this. Who was I? I was a cult survivor. I was a drug addict who was in and out of jail. I was a perpetrator and a victim of violence and crime. You starting to get the picture? I was truant, and so I picked the Pinnacle Story because I know this was the change in my life. This was what set me on the hard work to become the man I am. But then I've got to go back in time and I've got to illustrate to you how I got there. That's crucial to understand. That is what the backstory does, or the back history, I guess. It tells about how I became this. See, because we all inherently know that children don't start off bad. We're not born criminals. We're born innocent. So that's always in everybody's mind when you tell them about your Pinnacle Story. So they need an explanation. They don't care who you are until they know where you've come from. I can't stress that enough, right? So you start with the Pinnacle Story, you move through the back history, and this is crucial. You come back to the Pinnacle Story. Now, something really magical happens here. If you tell the back history correctly and powerfully enough, which I'm not going to teach you how to do on this video, by the way, when you get back to the Pinnacle Story, it is a revelation for people. They've heard it once. When they hear it again after all of this, it's like a brand new story, and it's powerful. It shifts people right then and there. Then, and only then, can you go on the hero's journey, which is all of this. Are you seeing how that's a question mark? How cool is that, right? So this is your hero's journey, and it only starts, and here's where most people make the mistake. The hero's journey only starts after the Pinnacle Story, right? The hero's journey starts after the transformational shakabuku moment. You with me? I know you're with me. I know you're digging this, because this is next level shit. Nobody's got this, but you're getting it, okay? Then you can tell me about the hero's journey. Then you can tell me about all that you learned and all the struggles you had while you were learning to become who you now are. And by the way, the hero's journey should not simply proceed like this. It should be rocky and jagged as hell, full of ups and downs, right? The hero's journey, for me, is the 15 years I spent doing spiritual work, internal work, self-awareness work, therapy, getting super raw and vulnerable with myself, even at one point inviting everyone who knew me to give me any criticism they had about me, because I was so hungry to learn how I ever could have gotten to here in the first place. I didn't understand it. I needed to know. I laid myself bare. That's my hero's journey. See, that's the journey of self-discovery. This back here is not self-discovery. But it's crucial because it paints a contrast to how far you come here. So, you pick a few stories in your hero's journey that really illustrate the struggle and illustrate what you've learned. And where does that lead you? Down here, which I know is just at the bottom of the screen, to this BTLL. BTLL stands for Breakthrough Lessons Learned. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, this is the end of the presentation. This is where you show who you are. This is, I like to jokingly refer to this as premature enlightenment. Because you give this to the audience, you tell this, the Breakthrough Lessons Learned is a summary of all the struggle you've been through on the hero's journey, which comes, of course, from the back history and the Pinnacle Story. When you get to the Breakthrough Lessons Learned, something magical happens. This is where people start to synergize and make positive, favorable assumptions about your qualifications based on the fact that you've done this and that you're now here, and the fact that you're the one speaking on stage. So from the Breakthrough Lessons Learned, if you get all of this right, Let's say you're speaking in order to garner clients. You get all of this right. And once you get to here, you don't have to do anything more than simply say, if you'd like to know more about me and what I do, come find me when I get off stage. I've seen it work for my clients over and over again. I haven't seen anything else like this anywhere. I hope you enjoyed this.